Hey, what's good, everybody? It's me, your hero, Benjamin Banks, and you are watching Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks, and this is another Who's That Cosplayer session. And joining me on today's episode is Cosplayer Johnie5. Johnie, thank you for joining me up here on Who's That Cosplayer. How you doing today, buddy?
Oh, of course, man. Thank you so much for having me out here. It's great. I've been doing well today. Can't complain too much, and it's another beautiful day in paradise.
Hey, I 100% agree with you, man. It is a beautiful day in paradise. It wasn't too hot today, so I'm very thankful about that. Yesterday, it got up to 90 degrees here. I'm from Virginia. Where are you from?
So I'm actually in North Carolina right now. Okay. I've been here for a couple years, but I actually, for the last, prior to that, it was probably about 10 to 12-ish years. I was actually up there in your neck of the woods. So
okay, cool.
So Virginia Beach.
So you know about the Virginia weather where it's like on one side of the street it's raining and then on the other side of the street it's snowing, and it's just like
all 4 seasons in one day. That's the challenge.
It's just like Legend of Zelda Oracle seasons, where it's just like you never know what you're going to get here. So like I said, everybody that's watching, this is another episode of Who's That Cosplayer. Like I said, Johnie5, he's joining me today. So before we get into this interview, make sure that you like the video, you subscribe to the channel, and you hit that bell button so that way you're always notified when we have new content here on Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks. Now, Johnie, I just want to tell you, I love your costume that you have on right now, man. Jason Todd with the red ring. Now, let me ask you, because it's like I do dabble in the comics a little bit, but it's like I'm not current or as up to date, you know what I'm saying? Now, does Jason Todd, does he get the red ring of rage in the comics, or is this just a creative costume that you just fuse together because it makes sense?
So what's funny is I'll have to take a little bit of shame on this one and say I haven't been recent on comics in a little while now. I've been like super busy, so I haven't had a chance to keep updated on it. However, what I will say is when I put this together, it was not a thing. So actually the logo that's actually on the shirt here, my sister is a graphic artist. So that logo that's on there, that's kind of my brainchild. And I threw that past my sister, who is a Green Lantern girl, Negasonic in some of my Deadpool pictures. And, she kind of kicked some ideas back and forth at me. And ultimately, that was the logo that came out of it. And I kind of ran with the idea from there.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's a badass logo, man. And it's definitely something that if it is in the comics right now, I could see it being possible because Jason Todd, he evolved since he first came back, but like I could definitely see him being a Red Lantern if it was a different comic book, even if it's not out yet. DC, you see my boy Johnie5, he has this awesome creation. Go ahead and make it happen. So something that we do here on Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks, every hero or villain has an origin story. So tell everybody, who is Johnie5?
Ooh, the origin story question. Pretty standard stuff. Ninjas, giant robots, mutants, sprinkle of fantasy. Basically, I've always been a fan of comic books and 80s nostalgia properties and just a bunch of that kind of stuff. But spoiler alert, I wasn't always into cosplay. Like cosplay was something that kind of, for me, came along after a immeasurable amount of poking and prodding by a friend of mine years and years ago who wanted to get me to go to an anime convention with him. And at that point, there really wasn't much in the anime world that I was into. Like I'd seen a few things here and there and was like, okay, this is cool. Like I like this one thing. I like that one thing. Right. But not enough to be like, yeah, I want to spend $50 to go to an anime con and then go to a dealer room where I might want to spend some more money. So for a while, like it wasn't like my thing right up front. And then, fast forward a little bit and another friend of mine wanted to go and coincidentally, I saw your posts in the NecoCon group and, talking about being from Virginia and whatnot. NecoCon was actually my first con.
Nice.
And so I had a friend of mine that she had tickets to go to NecoCon, and whoever it was she was going with, her friend like bailed out on her, and so she wanted to go. She says, I really want to go to this thing, but I don't have anybody to go with me. Like, if you want to go, like I have this ticket, you can have it, whatever. And I'm like, what kind of crap friend would I be to like not go to this con when my friend needs somebody to go with her and you got a ticket, the whole 9 yards. And so I went, like not really knowing what to expect out of it. And man, like the rest is history, because like, if you've never gone to a thing like that, or if you've been curious about it, whether it's just the con experience or cosplay in general, or like any other like, nerdy hobby that you might perceive some interest in, like literally it's just do it. Just take the jump, do it.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you, man. And I want to say, because I've lived here in Virginia like most of my life, and NecoCon has been a thing that's been here for such a long time, man. And I want to say back in the 2000s when I was going to school, like not the 2000s, but I guess you should say the early 2000s, a lot of my friends didn't have cars, you know what I'm saying? And it's NecoCon, like I lived in Norfolk, and NecoCon is across the water in Hampton. So it's just like, my mom, she wasn't going to drop me off at NecoCon, and, then I had to find a ride back home. You know what I'm saying? I remember going to the WWE shows at Hampton, at the Hampton Coliseum. And I remember it's like the only way I was going to get over there was if I rode with my grandfather's friend, you know what I'm saying? Because he took his grandson to the WWE shows, and like that was the only way I was getting to Hampton Coliseum.
Of course,
my mom wasn't dropping us off, especially with that tunnel traffic. You already know.
I was literally just about to say, and much like Mordor, one does not simply walk the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. But it's like, I think that NecoCon, it is an amazing place. Like all of the times that I have gone there, I've had a good time. I know that I had told you off of the Who's That Cosplayer video that the NecoCon was the first con that I had been to, but I had a brain fart, and that first con that I had actually gone to was the BAM Toy Con that was out Virginia Beach at the Virginia Beach Convention Center. That was the first one I went to, and it was like just seeing all of the cosplayers there in costume. I was just like, man, I really want to do this. And then fast forward to the following year, going to NecoCon, and I was just like, man, like, why am I not in a costume? And then the third year that I had finally gone to another con, I was in my first costume, and I never looked back. It's one of those things where you put on the costume and you become that character. That's something that I will always say up here.
Oh, 100%.
Who's That Cosplayer? Because it's a cool feeling. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you can, with cosplay, you can be whoever you want to be. You know what I'm saying?
And that's why I'm not dressed as Deadpool right now, because otherwise this would have very quickly turned into an interview with Deadpool.
Hey, it would have been fun, because Deadpool, he is the Stan Lee, like how Stan Lee makes cameos in the MCU movies. Deadpool makes cameos everywhere. And the Deadpool manga out in Japan, he's had cameos from other heroes, other characters. All Might just appeared in one of his mangas, and it was bad.
I did see that. It was pretty funny.
It was bad, and like I'm a huge My Hero Academia fan, so to see All Might working with Deadpool and like how he was helping him out, and he ended up knocking Thanos out with United States of Smash. It was just awesome, man. But
good stuff.
But I mean, hey, like you said, Deadpool, you cosplay as him. Like I saw the cosplays on your page, and it seems like Deadpool is your number one. Like, and with
absolutely.
Deadpool, you can do anything. I saw that you had did some Deadpool cross My Hero Academia where you were wearing the UA outfits, man.
Yep.
So let's talk about Deadpool a little bit, because like I said, he's your number one. Was he the first cosplay that you cosplayed as, or was it Jason Todd?
So actually it was neither.
Okay.
So I'm going to touch base real quick just on the Deadpool in the UA uniform, because some folks like immediately like clicked like the full picture what was going on there. If you noticed in some of the pictures, I've got a handful of other mutants in the Class 1X uniforms.
Yes,
representing Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. So yeah, so that was another sort of crossover thing that I just kind of brainchilded, and then roped a bunch of my squad into doing, and we had a blast doing that. But first cosplay was actually not Deadpool, and it was not Jason Todd. And what I'll say is, so I mentioned it was 10 plus years that I was, back in Virginia, whatever. So it's been a hot second since I first started doing cosplay. Okay. And so the first year that I went, I actually, I didn't dress up because I didn't know what to expect. I'd been kind of cajoled into going, and when I finally like caved and went with my friend. And so after seeing what I had seen and like seeing kind of the heart and soul that people put into the cosplay stuff, and your eyes kind of get open to like, oh, okay, this is what this is about. This is kind of cool. So I mentioned the 80s nostalgia properties that I'm also a big fan of. So my first cosplay was everybody's favorite ninja from the Arashikage clan in G.I. Joe.
Okay.
Storm Shadow.
Okay.
Not Snake Eyes.
I knew exactly who you were talking about.
So yeah. So I went with Storm Shadow. And I was, a little worried, like, that I'm at an anime con, I'm doing this, like, nobody's going to get this, and on top of that, like, I build a lot of random stuff. And when it comes to costuming, certain aspects of costuming, I kind of like to build there's screen accurate, and then there's sometimes functional standard. And then there's sometimes like somewhere in the middle, those two meet. Yeah. And so with Storm Shadow, his original costume was just like a white karate uniform and, like a hood and whatever. And so like I kind of took some liberties with the uniform, added a little like more black, like in the trim and like some other stuff and some accessories to it. I had added some Cobra symbols, some extra Cobra symbols to it where he only had like the one on his chest on the original uniform. Yeah. And I was actually really surprised, like my at that point, second con ever that I'd gone to and first time I'd ever been in cosplay, that people were like, oh my God, that's Storm Shadow. Like I'd hear people like walking by me in the hallway saying that, and it just felt really good. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. So yeah, it was actually with Storm Shadow. With Deadpool was a character that I had wanted to do Deadpool for a really long time, and way back in the day, we didn't have the cosplay resources that are available today.
Yes.
And so, yeah. And so it's wild to see, like, when you look back at like some of the stuff that people built way back, like before you could just buy stuff on the internet, whatever, before there was YouTube and yada, yada. Deadpool is a character that, like Spider-Man and like a number of other characters, like unless you really like nail that mask, like it's like, yeah, the costume could be all right, but like, I feel like if I'm wearing that mask and every time I look at the mask and be like, it's like, I wish it could be better. And sewing is not one of my strong suits. So, so that being said, I had a number of friends that were just like, oh my God, dude, like your sense of humor and your pop culture, like just addiction, like you need to cosplay this character. Like, why are you not doing this? Like you have all this Deadpool stuff. Why are you not cosplaying Deadpool? And I'm like, when I can get myself or make myself a mask that is up to a standard that I'm okay with, that's when I'll do it. And then sometime prior to the movies, all of a sudden, like, people were making stuff and doing stuff, and at that point I had my leatherworking shop set up, so I was doing a bunch of leatherworking stuff, and so I'd started actually building some of the accessories. So it's like, so when that day comes, like I've already got like, all this tactical gear that I've built and whatnot for the costume, and then the other pieces just kind of started coming together.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Like, I love how, you started with Storm Shadow and then you eventually worked your way to Deadpool. And I will say that Deadpool, he was popular before the movie came out. Mm-hmm. I feel like he was one of those characters where it's just like, if you were into the comics, you would love Deadpool. But once the movie came out, it's just like Deadpool, he blew up. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Deadpool was the male version of Harley Quinn from the Suicide Squad movie.
Oh, easy.
You were seeing like Deadpool stuff everywhere. Now, Deadpool, he was somebody who I knew back in the day. I wasn't a super fan of Deadpool. And I want to ask you this. I know you're a fan of Deadpool. Who were some of your other favorite Marvel comic characters? If you could choose 5 besides Deadpool, who are some of your favorites?
Now, are these 5 characters that are just like 5 of my favorite characters, or 5 characters that I would also consider cosplaying?
Let's go with both.
Let's go with both.
Uh-huh.
Oof. All right. Nightcrawler, easy.
That's my favorite X-Men.
Favorite X-Men.
Good first choice.
Yeah, first choice is Nightcrawler.
Yes.
Favorite X-Men. Certainly would have to work on my gymnastics game if I was going to do that one, though. So there's Nightcrawler is an easy number 1. it's funny because people oftentimes overlook the glory of having a casual cosplay in your lineup for, you know, that Sunday dealer's room jaunt. Mm-hmm. And so I've toyed with the idea on occasion of not doing like the full-on trench coat version, but doing Jamie Madrox, the multiple man, because you get like the mark on your face and, you know, the shirt with the cool design on it or whatever. And there's a lot of fun you could have in like photo editing with that to like, you know, make a bunch of like clones of yourself, like doing like a bunch of like cool stuff. So multiple man would probably be on the cosplay end of things, not necessarily like one of my favorite characters in the comic book. So I'll kind of make him like a 2A and then it's a little 2B, you know, a character that's you know, a great character that I like. That, man, see, I want to put this in both categories. So let me skip ahead to Mr. Sinister.
Ooh, Mr. Sinister. Yeah. He's a classic, and I'm very disappointed that we never got to see him in the Fox Marvel movies. He was rumored, Antonio Banderas was rumored to be playing Mr. Sinister, but once the Fox stuff fell through and it became a Disney property, they reshot everything. But yeah, Mr. Sinister, I love it.
Well, so you did catch the Easter egg in the movies, yeah?
Yeah, it was in
the case. The case that has Essex.
Which one was that? The Apocalypse movie, right? Age of Apocalypse, where that his it was like a Easter egg after credits thing. I do remember.
Yep. And then the briefcase had the Essex core on it. Yeah, that was pretty great. All right, so let's see. I need at least two more, and I've stuck pretty firmly into comic book territory. So it's a little untimely, but I'll throw this one out there. Guts from Berserk, but it's got to be the Berserker armor. It's got to be the Berserker armor. And it's funny because I've friends of mine like have been like, Johnny, you've already got like this going on. Like, you know, you need to do Guts.
No, Berserk is one of those series where it like Berserk inspires so much stuff, man. I don't know if you watched Castlevania. But one of the vampires, like she had a similar armor to the Berserker armor, and I thought it was so badass. And you know, I love that you brought that up because I do want to say that the creator of Berserk, he recently just passed away. So you know, it's sad. It's sad because it's like I said, Berserk is a very loved and cool story. So I wanted to say rest in peace to Mr. Kentaro Miura. And thank you for your work and creating
a
story that has inspired so many properties in the world of entertainment. So thank you so much, sir.
Oh, 100%. It's funny that you mentioned the thing from Castlevania because literally, like, so that scene, I was watching Castlevania. That scene comes on, and immediately picked up my phone and texted a good friend of mine because, like, I knew as soon as she saw that she was going to geek out. Not necessarily from the Berserk angle, but like. That scene was so good. But I texted her and I was like, you need to see this. And I was like, and after watching this, now this is why I've been hounding you to watch Berserk. Like that was like literally right from Berserk. Like you need to watch Berserk.
Hey, bro, I was at the gym watching Castlevania, and it was that scene, and I was just like, I do not care who is watching my phone because when I'm on the elliptical, it's like I sit there, I watch anime and whatnot, and that scene was intense. Like people were getting sliced and diced, and I was just like, I'm all for it, man.
Oh yeah, I was kind of disappointed that it was just that one like little scene that she didn't get another scene with the armor. It was just that one little bit. It's kind of like, you know, for me, what again with Castlevania, like season 2, like when you see the trio step into the foyer of Dracula's castle and it starts playing Bloody Tears, like oh my gosh, like you know, just that's what I want from Castlevania, is that right there.
And then,
but then
it was awesome when in season 4, when it's like when in season 2 they were going to take over the castle and to defeat all the vampires and whatnot, but in season 4 it's like they were defending the castle, and I thought season 4 like it wrapped up the story beautifully, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen next. Like I hope that we get Richter and I can't remember what game it was called that he first appeared in, but I know that the sequel was Symphony of the Night with Alucard being older. So hopefully we do get a continuation of Castlevania because it's a sweet series. Who's that cosplayer?
Funny Haunting, what's up?
Well, and so again, back in the Berserk thing, I know that it was at least rumored at one point, but I don't know whether it like went anywhere or whatnot. But the guy who did the Castlevania series on Netflix, like, had literally said in an interview that he wanted to get his hands on doing Berserk. So, yeah,
it's cool because like Berserk is one of those things where it's kind of like Hunter x Hunter, and like it's been going on for so long. So I know that a couple of years ago, they had came out with a continuation of the series, but it really didn't get that many good reviews. So that's the reason why I stayed away from it. So, I mean, if the guy who works on Castlevania, if he's a huge fan, I know that he would kill it because Castlevania, the animation up there was wonderful. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. And it was funny. He was saying he wanted to get his hands on it, but he also was saying that he doesn't want to do the Golden Age arc again.
Yeah, we've seen it already.
Right.
Yeah, let's move. Let's continue moving on. All right. So who's your fifth and final cosplay?
Fifth and final. Man, I forget because I think we started the question with like comic book characters, and then I kind of like started branching out.
Hey, you snowballed into Berserk, and I'll accept that because I love Berserk.
Okay, so since we've stepped out of the comic book realm, I'm actually going to throw another one out there that's not a comic book thing.
Okay.
And that is, I want to eventually build an Eversor assassin from Warhammer 40,000.
See, now I know what Warhammer is, but it's something that I never got into. So for everybody that's watching right now, like, explain, like, what is Warhammer 4000?
You're gonna need a couple hours for this interview. So yeah, Warhammer 40,000 is a very like grimdark science fiction property. Humanity is besieged on all sides by any number of ruinous powers, to alien forces, to whatever. Just, it's not a great place to live. It is. There is so much lore and so much story in that property that it's more of a setting than it is a like linear story. Yeah. So there's certainly different themes in that story that, like, if there's certain themes that you're attracted to in other properties, knowing kind of like where those themes are in Warhammer is almost like a better place for you to start trying to explore that fandom. So a friend of mine, like, he's really into like subterfuge and like cloak and daggery, like stab you in the back kind of like stories, like that kind of stuff. Well, there's one of the Space Marine legions, it's called the Alpha Legion, and those guys are like all about like subterfuge. They are essentially the Hydra of that setting. Like their logo is like a Hydra, like their whole like their I'll call it battle cry is Hydra Dominatus, and nice. Every Space Marine legion has a what they call a Primarch, and spoilers. The Alpha Legion has two. So the Alpha Legion has two Primarchs. They're twins. They actually just released like one of the books that like is like the story of all that stuff, which is super cool. But so the Alpha Legionnaires also will very frequently masquerade as their Primarch. So if you walk into an area and there's like 30 Alpha Legionnaires in there, they might, every single one of them might tell you, I am Alfarius, but whether Alfarius is actually in that room or not, you'll never know. And that's like with that specific faction, like that's kind of the cool thing is like, how much of what you're reading or hearing about this faction is the truth and how much of it is a lie, how much of it is, the truth wrapped in a lie, how much of it is the truth from a certain point of view, and so on and so on and so on. So that's kind of a cool thing. But if you're like a big Berserk fan, right? Yeah. There's another chapter of Space Marines. So they have what they call first founding chapters. So I won't go too much into that. There's a chapter called the Blood Angels. One of their what they call a second founding chapter, so successor chapter to the Blood Angels, is called the Flesh Terrors, and those are my boys. I love me some Flesh Terrors because those guys, the Blood Angels and all of their like lineage, they all suffer from a genetic flaw called the Red Thirst. So their Primarch was a guy named Sanguinius, who is this angel, and yada yada yada. Like I said, there's like hours of this that I can go into.
I mean, it seems like it's like it would take a whole episode to talk about.
It could, and I'd be barely scratching the surface. But yeah, whatever the case is, they have this genetic flaw. Basically, they have guts rage, if you will, and so they actually one of the audio dramas that they have for these guys, there's a really cool scene in it, which is literally this guy going through, like when you see Guts and the Beast of Darkness that's like in his head, it's literally like that, where he's got this, he's having this like battle of wills with this dark beast that like lives inside his blood, like just raging to get out. But the big difference there is that, you know, in that setting with those specific guys, like if that beast gets out, like if the beast wins the battle of wills, that guy's gone. Like sanity wise, he's gone. Like the beast takes over and you're done.
And so to compare to like an anime, it would be similar to Naruto, where it's like if Kurama took over Naruto's body, then pretty much Naruto's done. Or like on Jujutsu Kaisen right now, and as well, that's another one. You know, I always like stuff like that because it's like you already know what's kind of going to happen as the series progresses. That like in Naruto, for example, like Kurama, he was constantly trying to take over his body, but then it's like, spoiler alert, by the end of the series, it's like they're like this, they're together now. Kurama respects him now. So I totally understand that. So I wanted to ask you now, because I want to piggyback and kind of rewind a little bit. You know, you're a huge 80s nerd. So what are like some of your favorite properties from the 80s?
Well, I mean, we've got G.I. Joe already. Transformers, obviously. Thundercats was all right until it kind of went into some real dark territory in the comic books.
I never even got into the comic. I only knew about the cartoon. I didn't know that there were comics.
Yeah, it got into some real like weird, cringy, like I'm good with dark, right? Don't get me wrong, Berserk, Warhammer, whatever. But like there's a certain area where it's like, nope. Not sure why you wrote that, but so yeah, Thundercats was all right. Man, I'm trying to think like what else I was like really into. I mean, G.I. Joe and Transformers are really the big two. Like, I mean, I have a massive collection of G.I. Joe stuff that is ridiculous. It's out of hand. Transformers, you know, I kind of dabbled with the toys on that one, but you know, it's like I liked more individual characters, I think, in that than I did the overarching story. And until High Moon got the video game license, and then, you know, when High Moon did the Fall of Cybertron and War for Cybertron games, like they were like so good that then they were like Hasbro or whoever was basically like, oh yeah, that story that's canon now.
Like, oh, nice. I never even knew that. I remember those games, like what they came out on the 360 PS3, right? I remember that. Now, one thing I will say about the Transformers games is that they always do them justice. Like one of my favorite Transformers games was, I believe it was Transformers Armada. They came out on the PS2 way back in the day, and it was based off of the TV show at the time. And it was just so cool just being able to transform into a car and then transform into an Autobot and start kicking Decepticon ass. Transformers is just, it's always been one of those things where it's just been popular. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure that this is on your list, but you haven't mentioned it. But Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You know. Oh,
I mean, that's somewhere in the board game collection there as well.
Hey, I noticed the board games back there. Now, let me ask you this: like, when you're not cosplaying or you're not working on, you know, making props and whatnot, what do you do? Like, I can see the board games. I would assume that that's one of the cool things that you're into. Let's talk about it.
I have a board game addiction. This is but a small fraction of that addiction. But no, I have some pretty specific interests when it comes to board games. I like to do a lot of tabletop stuff that's like really immersive. So, you know, I mentioned Warhammer 40,000. Like, I actually have been in that, like, I'll call it, I've been into that IP since 2nd edition, which is a really, really, really long time ago. But as far as playing the actual tabletop, that's not something that I ever really pursued very much of, but I love custom building the miniatures for it. So like I like kit bashing stuff and doing that kind of stuff. So I do a lot of painting, a lot of building of tabletop miniatures. Do that same kind of thing for like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. So like one of the things I'm working on right now is actually a modular dungeon tile set. So I'm doing all like the painting and all that kind of stuff to put together this, you know, again, like a modular dungeon layout, you know, like you'd see on something like Critical Role or something. But so I'm working on that. I do leatherworking as a hobby. I do live action role playing games as a hobby. Let's see.
LARPing. I like
that. LARPing.
It's you know, I've been invited to a couple of LARP things years ago, and you know, I wouldn't mind doing it because it looks badass. I want to say ever since I saw it in what was that movie, Role Models?
Yep.
Yeah, bro, it was awesome. It looks bad. It's just like cosplay, but it's like you're actually out there fighting people and cutting off people's arms and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, it's cool, man.
So it depends. I'll say this on that subject. Like, it really depends on the game and like what you're looking for in a game. Because when it comes to LARP, like no two games are created the same. In my career, I've played everything from what they call lightest touch all the way to full contact. So I've played the gamut. One of the cool things, and one of the funny things about role models. So the cool thing about role models is that when they actually shot that movie, they based the rule set in their movie actually off of one of the actual games. So like they actually brought in people from that game system to act as extras in the movie, as well as to sort of be like consultants on the delivery of I'll call it the LARP material that was in the movie. Because of course there's the funny tropes and all that stuff and whatever, but like if you're also trying to sell that, like, hey, this is actually like a believable thing too. It's not just something that's like, I'll say like pathetic or whatever. Because some LARP things, some movies, LARP has been portrayed as like a very like pathetic kind of thing. Kind of like cosplayers kind of get a lot of hate sometimes for being nerds and whatever. Like LARP, gets the same kind of thing too. But the funny thing about role models is, so back in the day, I used to do like panels for LARPs at various conventions and whatnot. And you'd always have like that one guy that would be like, so like, have you seen that movie Role Models? And I'd be like, yeah. And they'd be like, does that like offend you? I'm like, no, not at all. Actually, like, I think it's funny. Like, it's, there's stuff in it that's like obvious tropes of like the stuff that's in the game. The same way that if like somebody pulled a bunch of cosplayers and said, hey, we're gonna build like cosplay and comic book conventions into this like comedy movie, right? Yeah. And we wanna have a convention as like a focal point in this movie. And we want to make this as believable as possible, but like also like we know that there's some cringe there that we can like actually have some fun with too. Like and not like crap on the hobby as well. Yeah. Like, that it's the same kind of thing. So like, again, like watching Role Models, like it was just so well done that it's like, oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. Did you ever play I'm
sorry to cut you off, but I wanted to piggyback off of what you had said. In Ted 2, they had did that where they were actually at a con, and I don't know if have you seen Ted 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it's like they were at a con, and it's like, I feel like that it's like they respected the con. I think it was New York Comic-Con, I believe, that they were at in that movie.
Yeah, it's been a while. I think you're right.
Yeah, and it's like I love how you said that it's like with Role Models, they actually had like actual people in there, and like they respected, LARPing and whatnot. They didn't make it cringe. They didn't make it funny, because I mean, growing up, you would watch movies where it's like there would be nerd elements in the movie, and you just like you would just be like, why are they doing this? Like, I know one thing that always got to me was I think it was in the first Charlie's Angels movie, right? There's a scene where there are these two kids in the living room and they're playing Final Fantasy VIII, and both of them have PlayStation controllers. And I'm just like, I mean, like, we all know that Final Fantasy VIII is only a one-player game, so like, why are both of them holding controllers playing this? It wasn't until Final Fantasy IX, I don't know if you knew this or the viewers knew this, but in Final Fantasy IX, it was actually for 2 players. So you could have somebody play with you, but I just always thought that was cringe. Just like, why would they add that to the movie? It was just dumb. But no, but you can continue. That was just a little snowball that I just went into.
Yeah, I forget what I was going to say.
We were talking about the LARPing. We were talking about LARPing.
Yeah, I know that. We were talking about the LARPing. We were talking about like the movies and whatnot. But man, I forget. It's gone. It's
cool. It's cool, man. So it's like, before we wrap this thing up, I wanted to ask you, what was a time that you were at one of the cons? Like, what was one of your favorite con moments?
Oof. Let's see. Couple for different reasons. So I will. I want to certainly give credit to NecoCon. Like I said, NecoCon was NecoCon was my first convention I went to, and back in the day, NecoCon versus NecoCon the last couple years. So I'll say that my return to NecoCon would have been maybe like, so not counting the COVID year, but maybe like 3 years ago ish or so. And a buddy of mine down here, we just happened to be free that weekend. And we were like, oh, Virginia's not that far. Like, do you want to go to NecoCon for the day? Blah, blah, blah. We went up, and I was kind of telling him, like, yeah, like back in the day when I went to NecoCon, like, there was this and this and this, and these are the kind of elements of it that I didn't like. But I mean, like, there was stuff that I obviously did like, blah, blah, blah. And then we got there, and the staff was great. Like props check-in at NecoCon for the past like 2-3 times that I've gone has been like literally the best props check-in I've ever dealt with at a convention. Like, oh my God, like people who kind of like know what they're looking at, number one, and number two are like, here's the zip ties. We're going to let you put the zip ties on your props because we don't want to risk damaging them. And we also know that you're going to want to take pictures with them. And then, their willingness to kind of communicate and talk with you as far as like, okay, so like, Deadpool, I'm carrying a pair of Desert Eagles. Like, where, like, can I put them on the trigger guard so that they can be in my hands during pictures? Or like, does it have to be somewhere specific? And so they were really cool and really accommodating about like working with cosplayers on looking at their props and really understanding what they were looking at as far as the props go. And then tagging them so that security could be, looking out for what they would need to look out for too. And then I'll piggyback on that and say that the security people that they've had working at NecoCon the past several years, amazing, absolutely amazing. I got some pretty funny stories about Hampton PD being just like 10 out of 10, like just wow, like great security people to have at the convention. Because again, there are some conventions I've been to where the security people, like, they don't want to be there. You can tell that they're just like, oh, there's a bunch of just nerds doing this thing. I hate this. Whereas, I literally had a cop tell me, like, not like literally the past 2 NecoCons I've been to, I had a cop tell me that the first NecoCon that he and I crossed paths at, like, he and a bunch of his coworkers like wanted to get pictures of me as Deadpool. They wanted to get pictures with me. So we did a bunch of pictures, blah, blah, blah. I come back the next year and he told me point blank, he said, dude, he said, when the NecoCon assignment came up for us to like basically sign up for, he said, there's me. He said, and there's like 4 other cops that we literally immediately signed up to come back to this. And he said, and it was maybe like 2 days before the con where we were like, oh crap, like what if Deadpool isn't Deadpool this year? Like what if he's not Deadpool this year? Because like we want to find Deadpool again, but what if he's not Deadpool this year? And so I'm about to leave the con that second time coming back, and I hear this cop, or I hear this guy, say, Mr. Poole. And I like turn around and there's this cop like walking down the stairs, and he goes, I thought that was you. And he says, yeah, he said, I got here. And he said, and I've been basically watching, we've been looking out for you to see if we could find you again. He said, because man, it meant a lot, that you took time to take pictures with us that first year. And, a lot of us, like, we signed up to come back because we were so well received, not just by you, but like by other cosplayers and whatever. And it was just actually a lot of fun to like be there and like do that. So like Hampton PD, oh yeah, they enjoyed themselves. And that makes a world of difference. Yeah. On the flip side, like as far as like just general like con experiences, like the first time that you go to like a really big con, like I hope that is a great experience for everybody. So like the first time that I went to Dragon Con down in Atlanta was like, oh my God, that was an experience, you know, because it's just a different beast. Fun. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a completely different beast of a convention.
Yeah, I heard like Dragon Con, of course Comic-Con, New York Comic Con, I'm sorry. Like those, like I always hear that, there's so much going on. There's one in Maryland, MagFest. That's another big one that I always hear about. But yeah,
just don't get caught up in the MagFest Katsucon drama.
Ooh, hey, noted. And everybody that's watching, make sure that you take note of that. But yeah, Johnie, it's been awesome talking to you, man. Thank you so much for coming on to Who's That Cosplayer. It was fun. This is something that I love doing. And before I let you go, let everybody in social media land know where they can find Johnie 5 at.
All right. So step 1, Instagram. You can find me on Instagram. That's where I do like all of my cosplay stuff. Yes, I like stuck my toe in the cesspool of Twitter and created one. It was mostly just to save my name on there, but I don't really do a whole lot on Twitter. But alternatively, I actually also do, I contribute to an outlet that we have here in North Carolina called The Variant. And the Variant is an outlet that does comics, cons, cosplay, and like kind of all things that are generally like nerd culture. So one of the cool things that we do with that is like at conventions, we'll like set up a photo booth. And if you're a cosplayer, you can show up and literally get your pictures taken for free.
Nice.
And then we just like upload stuff. So like, if you got a new costume that you want to just get some good pictures of, like, all the people that we've got doing photos there are just great, like just great people, easy to work with. And then some of them are also people that like, I just generally pal around cons with too. So, part of the squad, as it were. So like I said, step one, Instagram, that's going to be the main place to find me. And if you find me there, if you find me at a con or whatever, like I'm very approachable. I'm, as you can tell, quite chatty. So,
that's what
I'm always down to like just kind of hang out and BS and swap stories with people. So Instagram is typically the place to be. And then, like I said, for any of the contribution stuff that I do, or any conventions that I might be I don't want to say like making an appearance at, but like anything that I might be like, if I'm helping out with something, like if I'm helping actually like run photo booth, or if I'm helping doing like cosplay judging, like a lot of that stuff is typically announced through the Variant.
Yeah, nice. And I'll make sure that when I post this episode that I tag them in the episode link. So it'll be down below in the description.
Perfect.
Yeah, you're welcome. Johnie, thank you again so much for joining me on Who's That Cosplayer. And like you can always follow me, your hero Benjamin Banks, at @KingBenjamin_Banks on Instagram and Twitter. And then you can find me on Facebook at Benjamin Banks. And I should be the first person to pop up. If not, then I need to contact Mr. Zuckerberg. Thank you again, Johnie 5, for joining me on Who's That Cosplayer. Like I say every time, keep that pinky up, stay positive, and we'll see you next time on Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks. Peace.
Thanks again, everybody, for watching another episode of Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe to the channel. Podcast, we got that too. Make sure you give us a thumbs up and hit that bell for further episodes and notifications. Thanks a lot to our patrons. And if you don't mind, join the Patreon. We'll be having new specials coming up soon.